Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Greenville Tech. I hope y'all are enjoying this is a nice, new, different space for our meetings. So glad everyone came, and y'all are here and enjoying some nice brunch food today. Um, just want to welcome everyone and also thanks Eric and Dave Brunner is here representing the district, and Dave's going to have some announcements about the upcoming district conference here in a few minutes. So welcome. Let's go ahead and do happy bucks. If anyone has any happy bucks, Luke's going to lead that up for us today. Oh, he's got his own mic. Go ahead, Luke.
Hey everybody, we're gonna do happy bucks. Anybody got something they're happy about? They want to throw some dollars in the bucket. Let me take this one. Thank you. Coming this way. What you happy about?
I am happy that I married my first daughter, my one and only girl, two boys after that. But 3 weeks ago, went smooth. My wife pulled it off, and we had a wonderful time. Really grateful.
There you go. Congratulations.
I'm happy my Ville team made it through the mountains from Asheville to Greenville this past weekend, and we're 11th out of the all-male teams.
Go. Something to be happy about. We got more at this table. This table's winning.
I'm happy we're in this facility which was designed by my firm, McMillan Pasden Smith, in collaboration with my former employer, Prisma Health.
It's a beautiful building. Any more happy bucks? Where are we at? Drop my phone. Don't worry about it. Happy bucks. Happy bucks. Where are they at? Anybody else?
This side of the room is very unhappy.
I'm just happy to finally get to the Greenville Club. I haven't been here for a while, and I appreciate it's always fun to be here. Thank you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Happy to have you. Anybody else before I put the mic up? Nobody wants to hear me talk anymore?
I'm happy because I'm a new member.
Happy to have new member always. Going once, going twice. Sold.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to have our positive thought of the day from Christine gave this to me. So this is it. Compassion will shift you. Be more kind than you think is necessary. Offer your seat to a stranger. Smile. Say a loving word. Believe in others. Think generous thoughts. Your compassion will change the course of someone's life, and in the midst of that, will change yours too. And with that, if everyone will stand and we'll say the pledge for our wonderful flag here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. All right. Then I'm just going to go over a few announcements of some upcoming events. So on the April 16th, the next Coffee and Conversations is at 9:30 a.m. I'm going to say this wrong, but it's at Quahala Place. It's that new coffee shop on North Main Street, kind of near Coffee Underground. And then on April 24th is Discover Rotary at Craig Galton Davis, and that's at 5:30 p.m. The next after hours meeting is going to be on the 23rd at Merrill's Gardens. And April 24th through 26th is the district conference, and Dave's going to speak more about that. And then our next luncheon will be at the Westin on the 28th. Dave, I think you're presenting on that one as well. So we'll get a lot of Dave coming up here pretty soon. Heck yeah. So, all right. Well, that's all of my announcements. So, Dave, you want to come up talk about CART?
Obviously, you have to have the name Dave to talk up here today. So I want to make sure that I feel bad because Caroline took off because our match donor for April this month is Caroline Stewart, who's been a member of this club since 2010. And during the majority of this time, she ran Lewis P. Batson Company, a supplier of textile machinery. She spent 38 years with that company before retiring in 2020. In addition to servicing the textile industry, many of us credit Caroline for teaching us the finer points of bulb and light repair on Roper Mountain. She led our major funding effort for years up there. Today, you can find her making sure we keep the Rotary Park clean, And you can learn a great deal about being a Rotarian hanging around her because her email is letsvolunteer21@gmail.com. So thank you, Caroline, for your cart match this month. Separately, a couple people have asked me questions about Alzheimer's Association versus CART Fund. And I honestly really didn't know what the relationship was between the two organizations. So I spent a little bit of time and did some research and just wanted to bring everybody kind of up to speed of what happens there. Now, the CART Fund, which of course is owned by 600 Rotary clubs, basically. The CART Fund is dedicated to funding cutting-edge, high-impact research to find a cure for Alzheimer's disease. That's where all the money goes. 100% of all donations go directly to research. Was founded by a guy named Roger Ackerman in a Sumter Club here in South Carolina in 1996. And then after about 5 years, they did their first $100,000 grant. And it was basically a job for the District 7770 for that area from the Midlands down to the beach. And then it started to expand the rest of South Carolina and down to Georgia. And the first million in grants was 2019, 20 years later. And last year, we awarded $2 million in grants. The district created a fund to pay for a part-timer about 5 years ago, just sort of a fund they could draw from. And that is Tiffany Irvin. You may know her from her work on WSPA and WLOS 13. She was president of the Hendersonville Club up in Hendersonville, and then took on the job of basically being a mouthpiece for CART. She told me that next year, the 30th year, she hopes to exceed $3 million in grants and told me to get to work. Now, the Alzheimer's Association has been around since 1980. It was started by Jerome Stone in Chicago. Their mission is to end Alzheimer's and all dementia by accelerating research, driving risk reduction, and maximizing quality care. And that quality care has become really the hallmark of what they've been about. Last year, the association contributions were $474 million, with $112 million going to research. Most of the association focus supports caregivers and education. 5% of their collections go to administrative costs. They have 2,700 employees, and 17% goes to fundraising efforts. So we are 1% of the Alzheimer's Association. They don't support us per se. We have not been supporting them, although Rotary International in Chicago has an agreement with them where when they do walks in the Chicago and the Midwest area, the clubs join in. But of course, CART doesn't exist up there. CART's really been the southern states as well as the coastline. And that's basically the difference between the two of them. What we look for, frankly, are things that need attention because the drug companies are afraid to fund that kind of research. It's more cutting edge stuff that CART begins to fund. Like this one I'm going to show you, only 500 kids have Alzheimer's.
I was waiting for the bus when a lady came, and she smiled at me, so I did the same. And I noticed that there were tears in her eyes. I saw a photo of a child to my surprise. Oh, she must have a sad story to tell, 'cause I tell you, the photo looked like a little girl.
Is there anything you struggle with now that bothers you? What is something that
It scares me. And I feel like I might die.
Is that what scares you?
You know, that's kind of hard to talk after that. I don't know about you guys. I didn't know there was such a thing as childhood dementia. So that's obviously interesting and very sad. But Dave kind of led me into talking about the district conference that's coming up not this weekend, but the weekend after, April 24th through 26th. On Sunday, after the district conference, we're going to have a jazz brunch for CART. So that kind of leads into that to raise money for CART. We have actually a jazz band from New York City that will be performing. Apparently, they're doing a some sort of a concert here in Greenville on Saturday night and one in Columbia on Sunday night. So they volunteered for a stipend to come and do play for us at the Jazz Brunch. So that's going to be part of the conference. But let me talk. The other thing I will mention, Dave talked about Roger Ackerman, who started from the Sumter, who started CART. I believe Wade Kolb's dad is a good friend of was a good friend of Roger Ackerman from Sumter. So you've got a connection there as well. But I wanted to talk just for a couple minutes about the conference. You know, as a district governor, we have an official visit. My official visit to you guys got canceled a couple times. Once because of the real governor was going to talk, and then another time because of the snowstorm, the ice storm. So I'm not going to. My official visit, as Jeremy said, is not till April 28th, which is after the district conference. And one of the things I talk about in my stump speech, I guess, if you will, to the clubs, is to talk about the district conference. It's registration ends tomorrow. We have 12 people from this club that are already registered. I thank you very much for that. But we could use some more. Let me talk a little bit about what the conference is. Friday night, we're going to have a 60s and 70s party. So if you're a mind to enjoy that, you can dress up, you can come as you are, whatever. We have a live band, and we'll have a lot of fun because the secret sauce of Rotary is what? Having fun. And then Saturday, we have some really dynamic speakers. We have Gregor Baum, who's going to be staying with Christina. He's a peace fellow from Germany. I've heard him speak before. He's a dynamic young man, and he's going to kick us off on Saturday morning. We also have some breakout sessions. We've got Clemson Turagano. We have a fellow by the name of Marshall Butler, who is our Rotary International Director, Zone Director elect. He'll be on the board of Rotary International starting in July. Have you guys seen the Talking Paul Harris videos? Marshall Tucker's the brains behind that. He's the guy who started all that. So he's going to talk to us about how do you use artificial information to tell your story about your Rotary story and your club story. So that'll be interesting. We've got a couple other very interesting breakout sessions, one on leadership as well. And then for lunch, we're going to hear from Beth Paget from this club, Lorraine Angelino, and Carol Burdett, who spent 2 weeks in February in India inoculating children for polio. So we'll hear their story. We're also going to hear from Lake Wiley Club about the hydroponic growing project that they're doing. And in the afternoon, we have some great activities. We've got a wine tasting. We've got a bourbon tasting. We've got a hatchet throwing place that you can go, or you can go to Unity Park and hear from the Mayor Knox White about how Unity Park came around. And George Fletcher knows that story very well because he was part of that as it came around. But it's a very interesting story if you haven't heard. And if you don't want to go anywhere, we're going to have a history professor talk about South Carolina's role in the Revolutionary War. And then in the evening, we'll have our dinner reception and dinner. Marshall Tucker is our keynote speaker, and he's a dynamic gentleman, young man, and he's going to talk about what the future of Rotary looks like, and he's going to be part of what leads that. So we have some great things going on, some great information, some great fellowship, and then as I already talked about on Sunday, we'll have the jazz bunch. You can sign up for the whole weekend, or you can sign up for parts of the weekend. You can come Friday night, or you can come just on Saturday, or you can come just for the jazz brunch if that interests you. So please think about it, consider it. Registration ends Thursday, so you need to register this week. I invite you all to come. It's going to be a great time, great fellowship, great fun, and some great information that you can take back and make your club even better than it already is. Thanks very much.
Thank you, David. Chataqua Greenville has produced some incredible programs each summer, subtitled History Comes Alive. With the exception of COVID in 2020, they have done a program a year since 1999. They also stage lectures at the Hughes Library with guest speakers talking about this year's theme and characters. How many of you have ever attended a Chataqua event? For those of you that will take one of these, this tells the story of the summer program. And for those of you watching online, you can see the whole program at historycomesalive.org. But this is a great brochure. It is written by one of our, or coordinated, I guess, by one of our two guests today from Chataqua. I'd first like to introduce Lara Kaufman, the executive director. She joined Chataqua in 2022 and has maintained the incredible tradition of producing the summer programs and winter lectures for free, doing so, of course, by raising money on the side. They are now taking programs to surrounding areas like Spartanburg and Asheville. And Lara will be here helping Larry answer questions. Our speaker will be Larry Bounds, one of the real pillars of Greenville Chataqua over the years. Larry has an undergraduate degree in theater and a master's degree in education. He retired in 2019 after 31 years of teaching. He has achieved a national certification, serving as president of the Greenville County English Teachers Association, being named Wade Hampton's Teacher of the Year, pioneering the Advanced English Language Program, Placement Program, and working with various national organizations. While he was doing all of that, he was a professional magician, still is performing as a professional magician, and has played 16 at least characters for Chataqua. There's a list of those characters on your table. And there's costumed references on the website. Greenville Chataqua, LarryBounds.org/Chataqua. LarryBounds.com/Chataqua. Those of you who have seen any of these performances will know just how much time it takes to create the act, then to answer questions as the actor, and then to answer questions as a third party about the actor. It is an incredible effort. This summer, he will play Edgar Allan Poe in Greenville, but he's also going to play 4 other characters in 7 shows in 5 states. Pretty good, Larry. It should be no surprise that Larry Bounds is an active member of Mensa, the National Organization of High IQ People. Please join me in welcoming Larry Bounds.
Hello, one and all these smiling faces ready to learn all about Chataqua. I'm going to step back no, I went too far. Okay. The first thing when one is talking about Chataqua is people wonder, what on earth is that word? Right? We have a website, greenvillechataqua.org, but we realized it was not the most practical website because no one could spell Chataqua, right? So we also have linked it to a website called historycomesalive.org. And that'll take you to the same place unless you're daring and trying to challenge to write Greenville, Chataqua.org. Let me tell you what Chataqua is, where Chataqua came from, and where Chataqua is headed in the future. And then, of course, Laura and I will be happy to answer questions you have about our program, about the characters we do, about how it all works. But let's go back in time, as we always do in Chataqua, back into the 1800s. And in the 1800s, 1874, on Lake Chataqua in Western New York, there was a school for Sunday school teachers, a summer school for Methodist Sunday school teachers. This was a very popular program, and there's a picture of one of the later groups meeting there in Lake Chataqua. That takes us to the word Chataqua itself. Lake Chataqua is in the shape of an hourglass. Everyone can picture that. Chataqua is an Iroquois Indian word that means sack tied in the middle. In other words, an hourglass. And so on the banks of Lake Chataqua, the Chataqua Institute was formed. People often ask, and how many of you have been to the Chataqua Institute in New York? Has anybody? Yes, see, several people have been there as well. It's a wonderful program. It was in the news last year when Salman Rushdie was on the stage of the Chataqua Institute and was attacked and stabbed on the stage of the Chataqua Institute. You have summer programs, you have lectures, you have musicians, you have entertainers. And way back, 1874, they realized when these Sunday school teachers came, many of them came there, it was sort of a camp-like setting. They had families they brought with them. And they needed something to do when they weren't in class learning how to teach Sunday school. So they brought in lecturers, they brought in entertainers, they brought in musicians, and it became very popular. So popular, in fact, that between 1904 and 1940, they had Chautauquas in some 10,000 communities around the United States, including Greenville. They estimate some 45 million Americans attended a Chautauqua program. Now, these were not all on the coast of Lake Chataqua in Western New York. By this time, the first thing that happened was local communities outside of Chataqua, New York, began organizing their own activities with their own local performers, their own speakers. And then someone said, you know, this is like the circus. We could take this show on the road. And there became a blue company and a red company that traveled by train. And they had noted speakers. If you were in 1904 or 1905 and you went to a Chataqua show, it could be the speaker up on stage could be Mark Twain himself. And you would have opera companies, and you would have jugglers and magicians and lecturers on metaphysical realm. And you would go and you'd spend a week going each night to different lectures and different performances for the entertainment. All of this came to an end, however, with the Depression. As the Depression set in 1929 into the 1930s, the cross-country trips faded, including, well, a comment by Teddy Roosevelt. I will interrupt to say something from Teddy Roosevelt. He said, it is a source of positive strength. Oh, let me do Teddy Roosevelt. It is a source of positive strength and refreshment of mind and body to come and meet a typical American gathering like this, a gathering that is typical American in that is typical of America at its best. So Chataqua is America at its best. All right. We had a fellow here named Doug Mishler who does Teddy Roosevelt much better than I was just doing. Anyway, and from 1915 till 1929, it met at McPherson Park here in Greenville. And down at McPherson Park, they'd be there for a week. They would set up the big tent. They would have the performers. They had jugglers, musicians, speakers. They did scientific lectures. They did philosophical lectures, historical lectures, mixed with the entertainment to make it entertaining as well as educational. It was a giant potpourri of education that was, well, as I said, 45 million people over the course of time attended these programs here in America. In 1974, so this would be 34, 35 years after it had died out, there was a professor up in the Dakotas that said we should bring Chautauqua back. And he knew we weren't going to get Mark Twain, for example, to be a speaker. But what if we got a scholar, a professor? Used to be the requirement was you had to have at least a doctorate to be able to perform at a Chautauqua. What if we had a performer pretend to be Mark Twain, present the same kind of program that Mark Twain would have presented as if they really were Mark Twain? We could still have musicians. We could still have other shows and entertainment as maybe an opening act or something. But you would be going to hear William Jennings Bryan or to hear Mark Twain or to meet Teddy Roosevelt and hear from them. And the performer would speak in the words of that person. And then, this is the wonderful thing about Chautauqua, and for those of you who've been there, you know this. The next thing is they would, at the end of the prepared remarks, they would open the microphones to the audience and allow the audience to ask questions of the performer in character. So let's say that the person was playing George Washington. They would pass around the microphone and you could talk for the first time in your life directly to George Washington. Ask George Washington the questions you would always have wanted to ask him. For example, you might ask, is it true as a little boy you cut down that cherry tree? And he, of course, would have no idea what you're talking about because that story was not invented until 30 or 40 years after his death. But you would find that out, that he would go, I'm sorry, madam, I've cut down many trees in my life, but I'm not familiar with my father's cherry tree. So you could have a conversation, though, ask them what they thought of this or what they thought of that. A common question that comes up is, so General Washington or President Washington, how did you die? Now, this question presents a few problems. Standing here, Larry Bounds, you could say, Larry Bounds, how did you die? Would I know? No, it could be a bus accident on the way home just in a few minutes. Or it could be in a nice soft bed surrounded by family 20, 30, should I dare say 40 years from now? No, there's no way. So that question is a question that people are often interested in. But George couldn't answer it, so we come to Act 3 of our show. In Act 3, the character steps away and the performer is introduced to the audience. Thus, the person playing George Washington is now John Jones from wherever, who has studied the life of Washington for many years, who could live and breathe as George Washington. And now you can ask that person, the scholar, questions that George Washington himself couldn't have answered. So often the performer will take off their powdered wig or whatever and become the scholar. And then you can ask them, how did George Washington die? And they will tell you the story of him riding his property, catching a very bad cold, going to bed with this very bad cold. The symptoms worsened, and so they brought in a doctor. The doctor began the standard practice of bleeding him, opening a vein in the arm and taking out a cup or so of blood. And when he didn't get better, they took out another cup of blood. And, standard medical practice. I'm sure we've all had that happen, right? And of course, for some reason, after multiple bloodlettings, he just got weaker and weaker until he died of a cold. Son of a gun. But George would have no idea of that in his own time. So that's what we do at Chataqua. These guys in 1974 began this process. In fact, one of them in this picture, the fellow in the front row on the far left, is still performing. That was 52 years ago, and he is still performing around the country, though he often plays older characters now than he used to. All right. In 1999, Chataqua returns to Greenville. There was a professor who had worked with the Chataqua in the Dakotas and in Oklahoma, and for many years he had done the Chataqua programs. His wife was offered a teaching position at Furman University. He had just retired as a professor emeritus from the University of North Dakota. And so he and his wife and their two children moved to Greenville. George was at one of the bookstores across from McAllister Square. What was the name of that wonderful bookstore? Open Book. Duff Bruce had Open Book. He was there looking around the books, and he saw a book about the Chataqua, the history of Greenville, because he was fascinated by history. He looked in the book and saw that Chataqua had once come to Greenville. Now, he had spent 20 years performing as a Chataqua performer, and Greenville used to have a Chataqua. And he talked to Duff Bruce, who was the owner of the Open Book, and then Bruce put him in touch with several other local people, historians, people of interest. And together they mounted in the back of the Peace Center, down on that little outdoor stage at the back of the Peace Center. In 1999, they put together the first Greenville Chataqua program. There were a couple of dozen people there. I know 2 years later, I saw as an English teacher teaching at Wade Hampton High School, because I moved here in 2000. As an English teacher teaching at Wade Hampton High School, I saw that Herman Melville was going to be speaking to audiences at the Greenville Library. This is where the Children's Museum is now. And I had to go and hear Herman Melville. Of course, I had read Moby Dick. I'm sure all of us have read Moby Dick, right? Sure. But I'm an English teacher, you expect it. So I went to hear Herman Melville, and there were like 12 of us. They didn't even seat us in one of the meeting rooms. They seated us around the board. It was the room where the board met. So there were like a dozen chairs around a table, and we just barely filled that. There weren't that many people. The program was brand spanking new. And there was George in costume presenting his character to us. And I thought it was fascinating because he was only doing lines from Moby Dick that were hysterically funny. Now, when I had read Moby Dick, I had not noticed lines that were hysterically funny. But there actually is. I mean, when a naked cannibal with tattoos over his entire body surprisingly climbs into bed with you, that is the nature of some humorous activity. And it was in the book. But when I read it, this is this important book, I had not thought about, oh, this is a bit of brightness among the things that are to come. But he made that clear by acting out that character, explaining how Herman Melville wrote it. It made it all come to life and improved my performance as a teacher. So I began giving students extra credit for coming to these presentations in Greenville. This is our 28th season. And even in the year when we had COVID and we didn't have the big outdoor or in-theater shows, we still put on presentations online. So we have been since 1999 continually doing these programs. The programs are all free. There's no tickets purchased or anything like that. We do encourage, if you enjoyed the show and would like to donate to the cause, you can leave a donation in one of our baskets if you like, or you can go online and you can donate to the organization. So we'll have funds to continue. We are very fortunate to have several grants that have been presented over the years. But basically, our program, bringing in scholars from all over the country, we find some of the best scholars in America and bring them in, noted performers. The early days when you had to have a doctorate to be able to do a show in character, they discovered that some of these very educated people, as brilliant as they were really lousy performers. And they could stand there and be George Washington, and the audience didn't care because they were tedious and boring. Not like George, because George commanded a room. He was 6'4", big man for his day when the average fellow was around 5'6". He was a commanding presence. He spoke softly, but in a way that people paid attention to. There's a certain performance there that you have to do, and for each character, it's different. This year, I'm doing Edgar Allan Poe. Now, you've never heard Edgar Allan Poe speak. There's no recording of Edgar Allan Poe. So what would Edgar Allan Poe's accent be like? What do you think? Call it out. What? British, a British accent. But wait a minute, he's born in Boston and raised in Virginia. Why would he have a British accent? He would, by the way, because for 6 years, when he first started school, his father, or his adopted father, well, his foster father, never got adopted. His foster father moved the family to London to open a department store in London because he had the most successful department store in Richmond, Virginia. So he moved to London. And so all of his early education was in London in private schools. So there'd be a bit of the London accent, sort of a lilt. If you read his poetry, you'll find connections where some of the words rhyme only if you do them with a British accent. But then again, he was also most of his life in Virginia. And when you think of a Southern gentleman in Virginia, so you have to develop a language which is sort of a combination of a Southern gentleman mixed with a trained British young man. There's always interesting things to do. Plus, I'm not exactly the exact size that we expect for Mark Twain. I was doing in Las Vegas last year, I was doing Harry Houdini. And when I stepped out of character, I said, now you realize I'm 20 years too old to play Houdini. He died at 52. I am 5 inches too tall to play Houdini, and I'm 100 pounds heavier than Houdini. But I hope you all enjoyed the show anyway, and they did. Because we did all the magic of Houdini, the escapes from the chains, the mentalism, and all that kind of stuff. We did it all while learning about the humanities. That's the key thing about Chataqua. It's a humanities program. You don't just learn facts and figures and dates. You learn ways that people have thought about this country, how the country has thought about itself, how attitudes have been shifted and changed, why we think the way we do now. I know in high school, kids always thought they were always individuals. And when I explained to them that there is nothing in their life they do that wasn't affected and allowed by somebody else, and they'd go, no, 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 no. I dressed myself this morning. Nobody helped me with that. Well, did you manufacture the clothing you wore? You know, when you got out of bed, did you build that bed? No, there are people every day in every single thing we do that are thousands of people that allow us to do what we do, to live how we live. And it's a thing that we can appreciate if we begin to look at the society as a whole and all the ways we interact with each other. The humanities program that Chataqua is. Okay. This year, in our 28th year, we are doing Revolutionary Americans. Now, you know why we're doing Revolutionary Americans, because it's the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution beginning, right? Oh, wait a minute. The American Revolution actually began in 1775, but that's okay because the Declaration of Independence establishing the country as a separate country was 1776. We learned one thing in Chataqua: history is a little wishy-washy. We celebrate things one time that actually happened at a different time, but we're used to celebrating it then, so we do. It doesn't really matter. Not really, as long as we celebrate. So this year, we're going to be having these characters up behind me. At the top is an actual South Carolina Revolutionary War hero, Rebecca Mott. You may have been to Fort Mott. You may have heard of Rebecca Mott. The chapter of the DAR in Charleston is the Rebecca Mott chapter. Rebecca Mott, after the Revolution, became the richest woman in South Carolina. Also the richest person, woman or male, in South Carolina. She was a rice planter, a businesswoman, and she is going to provide the flaming arrows to American troops that would allow them to capture her home that was being used as a British headquarters. It's a fascinating story. You'll have a chance to meet Rebecca Mott and hear all about it. Next to her, we have Clarence Felder. I'm sorry, Henry Felder. Yeah, Henry. Clarence is the one playing him. Henry Felder lived in Orangeburg. That's around Columbia. And in the Orangeburg district, that was considered the frontier. And he became one of the patriots that led. In fact, he wrote the Declaration of Independence for South Carolina before the American Declaration of Independence was done. He was an immigrant from Switzerland. He had a family, a large family here, and he and all his sons fought in the Revolution. An amazing story that has been turned into at least one feature film. And so we'll have Clarence Felder playing the role of Henry Felder. Clarence Felder is the fourth great-grandson of the actual person. And the performer himself was the star of the movie about Henry Felder. He's also a noted television movie star, a Hollywood actor who's appeared in many famous films. His wife, who's playing Rebecca Mott, was a regular on soap operas and may be familiar when you see them for those of you who are enjoying soap operas and movies. So a very high caliber class of performers that are going to be presenting these characters. But not only do we have actual Revolutionary War people, we will also have Edgar Allan Poe. But he wasn't in the American Revolution. He wasn't born until 1809. How can he be there? His goal was to revolutionize American literature. He wanted a different thing than what they were doing in his day in America, which was to take European literature and simply rename the cities. Instead of Paris, we'll make it New York. Now it'll be American literature. He said, no. American literature needs to be completely different, something new, something important, something that makes you feel all the emotions. And that's what he's advocating for. He wrote a lot more as a critic, as a fellow who actually ran critical language reviews, literary reviews. And so he'll be arguing for a revolutionary kind of purely American literature. We also have the civil rights leader, Paul Robeson, a man who his accomplishments were amazing. He was an NFL football star for 2 different teams. He was an All-American from college. He had a degree in law. He was a noted concert opera singer. He was a movie star. If you've ever seen the old movie Showboat, he's the guy who sings Old Man River. You know, I won't take you any further than that. So an amazing superstar, best friend of Albert Einstein, an amazing fellow, but most people have not heard of this guy. He was one of the most prominent civil rights leaders of the Harlem Renaissance. And you'll have a chance to meet him, hear about his life, talk to him, ask him questions right here in Greenville. And our final character is possibly the most controversial of all as a revolutionary American. It's Mother Jones. Yes, you've read the magazine, but have you met the mother? No. Mother Jones was a defender of workers' rights, starting with children workers' rights. Children should not be working 60-hour factory weeks and not going to school. They should not be working as they were here in this community. I'm sure you all know the stories of children working in the mills with their little fingers. They were picking lint out of the machinery to keep it running, losing fingers in the process. This is not work children should be doing, she would argue. And the first child labor laws were a result of her work to make life safe and productive. And then she continued on with other workers and the workers' rights movement, where you have wage slaves, where the coal company keeps you always in debt. We all know the song, another day older and deeper in debt. St. Peter, don't you call me 'cause I can't go. I owe my soul to the company store. Boom, boom. No one joined in. Okay, so we're going to have these characters this year. And so I think they'll be fascinating revolutionary characters. And you can expect, since the Revolutionary War continued for 8 years, over the next several years, you'll have a chance to meet other people from both from the Civil War. I'm South Carolina. We always talk about the Civil War. From the American Revolution, both locally and nationally, that we'll be bringing here. We will this year be performing in 5 different cities across 8 different venues over the 12 days of the festival, doing a total of 37 different Chataqua events with these characters. We have shows in Greenville, in Spartanburg, in Abbeville, in Liberty, and up in North Carolina in Brevard. When they have hosted us in Brevard now for what, 5 years, 6 years? It's been a while. Okay. The festival here is from the 12th to the 23rd, and you can find out all about it at historycomesalive.org. For the Q&A, at this point, I would love to answer any questions you have about Chataqua, about our programming, about characters we do, characters I've done, how you prepare for it. Lara over here, our executive director, knows all about the details of how everything functions because she keeps the wheels greased and things running. Yes, sir. Sure. During the program, I'm planning to do an explanation that he would give about how he came to write The Raven, which was his most popular poem. Within weeks of him publishing it for the first time, it was a national sensation and shot him to stardom right away. No one knew who he was unless you read these literary magazines. Nobody knew who he was until The Raven came, and then he became a superstar. Still didn't make any money. He sold the rights for The Raven for like $15, and that was the last money he saw from it. But it made him a star that brought him to South Carolina. He did a literary tour. The writer of The Raven is coming to our town, and he booked it out in Charleston. He did lectures on literature in Charleston. He also, by the way, did lectures on science and on philosophy and other things as well that most folks don't know that much about. But we're going to be doing how The Raven was written. I'm going to be sharing with you early in this program his very first recorded poem. And then at the end of the program, before we do questions and answers, I'll be sharing his very last poem that he ever wrote. Why don't I do some of it now? It was many and many a year ago in this kingdom by the sea. A maiden there lived, whom you may know by the name of Annabel Lee. And this maiden, she lived with no other thought than to love and be loved by me. And I was a child, and she was a child in this kingdom by the sea. But we loved with a love that was more than love, I and my Annabel Lee. We loved with a love that the angels above coveted her and me. And that is why, as all men know in this kingdom by the sea, a cold wind blew down from the clouds, chilling the beautiful Annabel Lee. So their high-born kinsman came and bore her away from me to shut her up in a sepulchre in this kingdom by the sea. But our love, it was greater by far than the love of those who are older than we, of those many far wiser than we. And neither the angels in heaven above nor the demons down under the sea could ever dissever my soul from the soul of the beautiful Annabel Lee. For the moon never beams without bringing me dreams of the beautiful Annabel Lee, and the stars never rise, but I feel the bright eyes of the beautiful Annabel Lee. And so all the night tide, I lie by the side of my darling, my love and my bride, in her sepulchre down by the sea, in her tomb by the sounding sea. There you go. His final poem. A beautiful love story that turns out he's sleeping with his dead wife. Okay. Thank you, Edgar Allan Poe. By the way, he had just become engaged. His first wife had died. Very, very sad, died of consumption, and therefore had a long, slow decline. But he had just arranged to marry a very wealthy widow that would have been able to establish his own literary magazine, been able to finance all that. The condition was he had to not drink for a month. And he had just, when we do the show, he'll be speaking from that 30th day when he has just confirmed he's going to get remarried. And he has had 30 days of sobriety, joining a group in Richmond, Virginia, that is a sort of like an AA group of the day. It was a different name. And he's celebrating because he's going to be going on the road and going up to collect one of his relatives and to visit one of his publishers. And then he's coming back to Richmond 2 weeks later and getting married. He will survive one more week before he dies. So you're catching him at the show. We have to pick the right time to set the character, because if you set the character too early, they can't answer questions about after that. So you set them as close as possible to their death, but you don't want to set him on October the 6th or 7th because he's in a hospital bed having deliriums. So you set him like a week before he leaves on the trip that will end up costing him his life. And that way you can speak right up to then. And then the scholar can then answer questions about his actual death and such. So, there, a poem for Edgar Allan Poe. All good? Anything else? Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Thank you guys for coming. And in honor of you guys speaking, Larry did sign this book that we're going to be sending over to Alexander Elementary School in your honor. So thank you very much. And with that, just a reminder for everyone to sign up for the district conference coming up. And thank you to Greenville Tech for hosting us today, and Jenny for getting all of that today organized. Thank you so much for that. And with that, yes, thanks, Jenny. If you'll please stand and we'll say the 5-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it be goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? And will it be fun? So with that, thank you guys for coming. We'll see you soon.